Disclaimer: this isn't just another space weather event. Sunspot AR4366 has become the most active sunspot of solar cycle 25, and what scientists are witnessing is unprecedented. In just the past 48 hours, this cosmic monster has fired off more than 20 M-class solar flares and 5 X-class flares, including a devastating X.1 eruption that ranks as one of the strongest solar flares in the current solar cycle. Let me put this into perspective. When we classify solar flares, we use a scale similar to the Richter scale for earthquakes. The classifications go from A, which are barely noticeable, to B, C, M, and finally X-class, which are the most powerful explosions our sun can produce. Each level represents a 10-fold increase in energy. So an X-class flare is 10 times stronger than an M-class, and 100 times stronger than a C-class flare. The X8.1 flare that erupted from AR4366 didn't just make headlines in the scientific community, it caused immediate, measurable effects on Earth. Shortwave radio blackouts struck across the South Pacific, Australia, and New Zealand, disrupting aviation and maritime communications for approximately 30 minutes. Emergency services and commercial flights had to switch to backup communication systems as high-frequency radio signals were completely absorbed by our ionosphere. But here's what makes AR4366 truly dangerous. This sunspot has what scientists call a beta-gamma-delta magnetic configuration. Think of it like a pressure cooker that's constantly building energy with no relief valve. The magnetic fields inside this region are so tangled and unstable that they're snapping and reconnecting almost continuously, releasing massive amounts of energy into space. Amateur astronomer Patricio Leon captured stunning images of AR4366 and described it as requiring more than 2 days just to rotate entirely over the eastern limb of the sun. The sheer size is mind-boggling. At nearly 10 times Earth's diameter, we're talking about a dark patch on the sun spanning approximately 124,000 miles across. Now, here's where things get really interesting for our planet. When AR4366 first appeared, it was positioned on the eastern edge of the sun's visible disk. But the sun rotates, and over the past several days, this volatile region has been turning more and more toward Earth. As of today, February 5th, 2026, AR4366 is positioned almost directly facing our planet, putting us squarely in what space weather experts call the strike zone. Oh, geez. If you're finding this information valuable, please hit that subscribe button for Weather to Wealth. Drop a comment below telling me what aspect of space weather interests you most. Your support helps me bring you more critical updates like this. The real concern isn't just the solar flares themselves. While X-class flares release intense bursts of electromagnetic radiation that can disrupt radio communications and damage satellites, the bigger threat comes from what often follows these powerful eruptions: coronal mass ejections, or CMEs. A CME is essentially a massive cloud of charged particles and magnetic fields that gets hurled into space at speeds of millions of miles per hour. When one of these plasma clouds collides with Earth's magnetic field, it can trigger severe geomagnetic storms. These storms have real-world consequences. They can knock out power grids, damage transformers, force satellites out of orbit, and even expose airline passengers on polar routes to elevated radiation levels. The March 1989 geomagnetic storm, triggered by an X-15 class flare, knocked out power across the entire province of Quebec, Canada, leaving 6 million people without electricity for 9 hours. That event happened when our infrastructure was far less dependent on technology than it is today. If a similar event struck now, the economic damage could reach into the trillions of dollars. Scientists at NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center are currently tracking a CME that was launched from AR4366 after the weekend's powerful X8.1 flare. The latest NOAA Enlil model simulations show the CME is on track to deliver a glancing blow to Earth around today, February 5th. Space weather forecasters are predicting KP levels of 3 to 4, with chances for an isolated G1 minor geomagnetic storm. For those of you wondering what this means in practical terms, a G1 geomagnetic storm can cause weak power grid fluctuations and minor impacts to satellite operations. More excitingly, it could push auroras, the famous northern lights, further south than usual. Skywatchers in northern states like Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, and Michigan might get treated to spectacular light shows over the next 24 to 48 hours. But AR4366 isn't finished yet. The sunspot's magnetic structure remains highly unstable, and space weather forecasters are predicting an 80% chance of additional M-class flares and a 40% chance of more X-class eruptions over the next 48 hours. Spaceweather.com has dubbed AR4366 a solar flare factory. And the rapid growth combined with the Delta-class magnetic complexity makes further major eruptions extremely likely. What makes this situation particularly noteworthy is the timing. We're currently approaching solar maximum, the peak of the sun's approximately 11-year activity cycle. Solar Cycle 25 officially began in December 2019, and scientists originally predicted it would peak sometime in 2025 with relatively moderate activity. However, the Sun has been consistently surprising researchers.